I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Your hair looks so pretty today. I feel like I always compliment you on your hair on recording days.
Well, I can't take credit today. I had a hair appointment, so it's not up to me today.
Yep. Professionally done.
Right. Not Stacey done today.
Not Stacey done. So, Stacey and I are going to take this opportunity while Amber is busy with some other stuff to talk a little bit about Mari and Mandalas. It is something that she and I both offer as services with the Healing Collective, and have both been specially trained in performing Mari assessments. And I always forget one of the letters. Mandala Assessment Research Instrument, I believe, is what it stands for.
Yeah.
I've been doing Mari assessments for, say, a little over a year now, almost 2 years now. But Stacey, you've been doing this for a good bit of time. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with Mari and what that is?
Yeah. I've been doing this since 2012, 2013, 10 years.
Yeah.
More or less. And kind of came upon it as a function of my own work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool that was used a lot in the community of support that I entered early recovery into. And it became really important for me in my own journey. And then it became really important for me in doing some of the early work that I did as a clinician with high trauma adolescents who did not always have the capacity or the ability to express what was happening internally. And I needed an arsenal, honestly, of other ways to support and other tools that can assist in that processing. And this was one of those for me. Mandala, the word mandala or mandala, or however.
I say mandala, so I've heard it many different ways.
Many different ways, but ultimately it's just a Sanskrit word for circle.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from a Jungian philosophy standpoint, Carl Jung saw mandalas as a fulfillment of self in the now, was kind of how he described it, as seeing an open circle. Our psyche recognizes that and wants to fill that with an image of me as I am right now. Mm-hmm. What gets reflected in that circle will be different in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 months. But for right now, it's a snapshot of how I am and what I'm doing, really based in cross-cultural research of symbol and color and the way that we as humans unconsciously recognize and categorize those into ways that we make meaning and ways that we organize ourselves in cycles of life, cycles of nature, cycles of birth, death, new, old, moving through development. And it just kind of taps into all of those different things. I like to use the color red as an example of that. Mm-hmm. When I talk about like cross-cultural applications, because when you think about the color red, it's power. It's a power color. It's an intense color, no matter where you go. Yeah. It's universally got a passion behind it. Yeah. And based off how it's used, if it's with a symbol that's like a heart, then it indicates one thing. But if it's a symbol like an X or a stop sign or something like that, then it indicates something completely different.
Yes.
And either way shows up with the passion and intensity from the color. And we see that and know that here where we live, and that applies cross-culturally. as well, that the way that we define and recognize those things.
Yeah. And for me, the mandala, the circle, it also creates some safety. So the way that I also look at it is, if you, from like an art as therapy standpoint, if you just take a blank piece of paper, that can feel very overwhelming. If yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of artists will take a blank canvas and I forget, I don't know why I'm blanking on the term right now, but they'll take a color and they'll just color the background. They'll do a base coat in a different color, so it's not this stark white canvas. And taking a piece of paper with a circle in it, it gives you a starting point. Feels less overwhelming than just a big blank rectangle or square piece of paper. And there's something very sacred about the circle, in the sense of what I put in the circle is safe there. It stays there. It's not going to bleed out off the paper.
Yeah.
So that circle for me also represents some safety.
Yeah.
And I love the red example, because as you were describing it, I kept thinking like red is lifeblood. Like at the core in my body, red is lifeblood. Red is root chakra. Red can, in a fire, red is anger. Red is that energy. Red is a very energetic color. And with Mari, it can also be, red is going to change depending on how much is diluted, how much it's intensified. If it's mixed with a different color, then the meaning is going to shift a little bit. It's also going to shift based on where it shows up in the great round, where it shows up in, as you were describing, the way I describe it to clients is, this is a journey. Where on your journey does this color show up, or do these symbols show up? The meaning's gonna shift.
Absolutely. I love using this tool as something to help with informing direction, especially in places where there's been some plateau in the treatment process, or there is some lack of clarity around what needs to happen next, or what path I want to take next in recovery, because it is such a subconscious reflection where the client is selecting the symbols, the colors, utilizing them in a Mari session in a way that informs themselves. It's not me creating meaning out of it. It's not me interpreting and sharing what that is. It's them organizing it into the way that makes best sense for them, and taking a look and saying, oh, wow, well, I see where this is, looks like this, and it feels like it needs to go there next. So what is that? And being able to just kind of support self in finding some of those next steps, and moving around some stages of change when it feels like there's a sticking point for some reason.
Yeah, I agree. I like to use it early in treatment to help inform some of the treatment planning. I like to use it later in treatment, after, like you said, we've had a plateau, or there's an issue that either we're stuck on, or there's something that I can feel that there's something under the surface and the client is having a hard time getting there. I'll bring out the Mari and we'll go through the assessment. And I always tell my clients, it's not going to tell you anything that you don't already know.
Yeah.
It's just going to bring to the surface some of the things that are in your subconscious that we're having a hard time accessing.
Yeah.
And it's been a really effective tool in my experience to support clients in identifying and recognizing, like you said, where do we need to go next? There's a lot of energy happening over here, and there's kind of things stuck here. So how do we get it moving? What do we need?
Absolutely. I mentioned working with it early on in my work with adolescents and severe trauma. And I love using it in those spaces too, because trauma is an experience and not an event, and it's stored in the body. And so often in the work that we do at the Healing Collective, when we are working with individuals who have experienced trauma and had a hard time finding healing, experienced trauma but don't connect with that, or don't have an awareness of what that means for them yet, a lot of times those people coming in can be really disconnected from the body, disconnected from what their experience is, and it shows up in a way that in other therapeutic models might be categorized as resistance.
Yes.
Where you ask a question and you get, yeah, it's fine. Okay. Short answers, not a lot of elaboration, not a lot of information. When working with clients who've experienced trauma, that shows up as a clear indication that the trauma is still present in the body and hasn't been processed. When our brains are under the influence of that, we don't have the capacity to give a whole lot out. And so this gives a bypass for that in right brain, a bypass to needing the words to describe or talk through for someone who has been disconnected from their felt experience, who has learned to stay safe by separating from self, allows some of that to surface in a way that doesn't feel scary and doesn't feel re-traumatizing.
And so what you're talking about right now is not just Mari, but using mandalas, the mandalas in session. So part of the Mari assessment is drawing a mandala, and mandalas can be separate from Mari. So both Stacey and I use mandalas and drawing in session to do exactly that. Sometimes having been so disconnected from my body, having been so disconnected or denied permission to have needs, identify needs, in order to keep myself safe, whether it's a traumatic event that happened and it's stored in my body, or especially with complex trauma, when we talk about codependency and how we develop codependent behaviors, it's a lifetime of separating from myself and denying what I'm feeling, what I'm needing. I know, part of my recovery has been listening to even just my basic physical needs. Ever since I was really little, I would get migraines, but still push through because I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. I didn't want to inconvenience somebody. So denying just basic physiological things. Trauma can be so deep that sometimes starting off with, you don't have to tell me about it.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it. But I do want you to draw what safety feels like for you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, even especially early on in trauma recovery, I don't know what safety feels like. I've never felt safe. I've never felt safe in my body. I've never felt safe in my environment. How do I know what safety feels like? But there's also a part of me at some point where I did feel safe, and I can access that through, or I can imagine what safety might look like and feel like. And I can access that by drawing it in a mandala versus being able to tell you, oh, safety feels like this, this, and this.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Such a valuable and powerful tool. I love being able to use it and being able to have it as a resource for our clients.
Yes, I agree. So if anybody is interested in learning more about Mari or mandalas, they can visit. We have a page on our website that talks about it. There's also the Mari Institute's website.
I believe that one is Mari Creative Resources.
Yes.
.com.
.com.
I think it's worth mentioning too, we've talked a lot about the way that we use it in our own work, that yes, it is something that we utilize in our sessions with our clients, and you don't have to jump ship with your therapist to be able to access a Mari assessment, gather that experience information, and take it back to your regular therapist. So it can be done as a consultation as well.
Yes, I agree. Beautiful. All right. Well, reach out if you want to learn more, and we will see you next time.